It's the middle of the night. You wake up in total darkness with no idea how long you've been asleep. Is it midnight? Is it almost dawn? You have no way to know. There's no glowing screen on a nightstand, no clock ticking on the wall, no phone to grab. You don't even know what day it is. Not the date, the day. Whether it's the 7th of the month or the 19th means nothing, because no one is counting. You lie there in the dark, and the only thing that will tell you morning has come is the sky slowly turning gray. For 99% of human history, this was every single night. No clocks, no calendars, no schedules, no alarms. So, how did ancient humans know what time it was? The answer is that they read time off the world itself, and they were far better at it than you are. Let's start with the most obvious clock, the one hanging right above their heads the sun. You probably think of the sun as just up or down, but to ancient humans, it was a precise instrument. The position of the sun in the sky, the length and direction of shadows, the color of the light, all of it told them roughly what hour it was with surprising accuracy. A shadow pointing one way at its shortest meant midday. The quality of light at dawn is different from the quality of light at dusk, and they could read that difference instantly. Modern hunter gatherer groups studied by anthropologists can routinely estimate the time of day within about 30 minutes just from the sun without ever having owned a watch. You've lost this skill entirely because you've never needed it, but the sun only tells you the time during the day. At night, they had a different clock, and it was even more impressive. The stars. Picture a sky with zero light pollution, not one electric light anywhere on Earth. The Milky Way blazing overhead, bright enough to cast a faint shadow. Your ancestors saw this every clear night of their lives, and they noticed that the stars moved. Specific stars rose at specific times and wheeled across the sky in a predictable arc. If you know which star is on the horizon at sunset and which one is overhead at midnight, you can tell the time at night just by looking up. Sailors used this for thousands of years. Long before that, ordinary people used it to know how much night was left before dawn. And the stars didn't just tell them the hour, they told them the season, which mattered far more than any date on a calendar. One star cluster in particular shows up everywhere. The Pleiades, a tight little knot of stars also called the Seven Sisters. Here's something genuinely strange. The Pleiades appear in the mythology of indigenous cultures on nearly every continent, including ones that had zero contact with each other. Cultures in Australia, North America, Europe, and Asia all built stories and calendars around the same cluster of stars. Scientists think this means humans were tracking the Pleiades before they spread out of Africa over 50,000 years ago. When the Pleiades rose at a certain point in the sky, it meant the rains were coming, or the cold was coming, or it was time to plant, or time to migrate. The sky was a calendar that every human on Earth was reading at the same time, before writing even existed. This is the part that's hard for modern people to grasp. Ancient humans didn't track time in the small units we obsess over. They didn't care about minutes. They barely cared about hours. They cared about cycles. The cycle of day and night, the cycle of the moon, which gave us the month, roughly 29 days from one full moon to the next, a unit so obvious that almost every early culture independently used it. And the biggest cycle of all, the year, marked not by a number but by the slow swing of the seasons, the migration of animals, the ripening of plants, the changing angle of the sun. Their entire sense of time was tied to nature, not to a grid of numbers. The day didn't start at a fixed hour. It started when the sun came up. Work, if you can even call it that, happened when conditions were right, not when a schedule said so. You hunted when the animals were moving. You gathered when the plants were ready. You slept when it got dark and there was nothing left to do. There was no concept of being late because there was nothing to be late for. There was no 5 o'clock, no Monday, no deadline. Time wasn't something you spent or saved or ran out of. It was just the rhythm of the world turning, and you moved with it. Even sleep worked differently. You probably think humans are supposed to sleep in one solid 8-hour block, and that waking up at 2 in the morning means something is wrong with you. But historical records from medieval Europe and sleep studies from the 1990s confirm that before artificial light, humans slept in two separate phases. First sleep, about 4 hours. Then a wakeful period of 1 to 2 hours in the middle of the night, spent lying quietly, praying, talking softly, or thinking. Then second sleep, another 4 hours until dawn. That 2 a.m. wakefulness you panic about and label insomnia? For most of human history, it was a normal, expected part of the night. People use those quiet middle hours for reflection. We've medicalized something our ancestors treated as ordinary. But the human body had its own clock too, and it still does. It's called the circadian rhythm, an internal biological timer running on a roughly 24-hour cycle, baked into your cells. It controls when you feel sleepy, when you feel alert, when your body temperature rises and falls, when hunger comes. Ancient humans lived in near perfect sync with this internal clock because the only thing setting it was sunlight. Light in the morning told the body to wake up. Darkness at night told it to wind down. There was no blue light at midnight, no screen tricking the brain into thinking the sun was still up. Their internal clock and the actual sky agreed with each other every single day for hundreds of thousands of years. So, how did it all change? The answer, like so many things, is agriculture. Around 10,000 years ago, humans started farming, and farming demanded a new relationship with time. You had to plant at the right moment, irrigate on a cycle, harvest before the crop spoiled. Suddenly, the loose rhythm of the seasons wasn't precise enough. Early civilizations built sundials to slice the day into hours. They watched the stars more obsessively to build the first real calendars. The Egyptians divided the day into segments. Water clocks dripped out the hours. And slowly, time stopped being something you read off the sky and became something you measured with a device. Then came the mechanical clock, and everything accelerated. Once towns had a clock tower, time became public and synchronized. Everyone in the village now agreed on what hour it was, whether the sun cared or not. The factory turned that into a weapon. Now your time belonged to someone else, measured to the minute, sold by the hour. The whistle blew, and you worked. The whistle blew again, and you stopped. For the first time, a human being could be late. Then the wristwatch put the clock on your body. And finally, the phone put it in your pocket. Glowing, buzzing, dividing your one and only life into notifications and calendar blocks and timers counting down. And here's what we traded away. Your ancestors woke with the sun and slept with the dark. They knew the time by looking up, not down. They lived by cycles that had turned for millions of years: the moon, the seasons, the slow wheel of the stars. They were never late, never rushed, never watching a number tick toward a deadline. They didn't measure their lives in minutes because they didn't have to. Time was the world breathing around them, and they breathed with it. You measure your life in minutes now. You wake to an alarm that overrides the sun. You check the date to remember what you're supposed to be doing. You feel time slipping away because you can watch it leave, second by second, on a screen. Your ancestors had no idea what time it was, and somehow, they were the ones who had all the time in the world.